Are you that weirdo that has a passion for solving the unsolved? Then this is a podcast for you. Welcome to Happy Hour Gets Weird.
It's almost like you've done this before.
I know, it seems familiar. Hello, all you cool cats and kittens. I haven't heard that in a while, so I thought I'd
Bring it back.
bring it back.
Bring it back.
I'm Cassie.
And I'm Tiffany.
And this is Happy Hour Gets Weird.
We get together once a week, have cocktails, and talk about all of the weird, interesting shit that you love.
Yes. So welcome back. This week we're drinking a Vanilla Plum Cooler. It's very good. Some might say plum good. Just plum good.
Just plum good.
Yeah.
It is delicious and refreshing. I was given some fresh plums, so I thought, let's use them.
Waste not, want not.
Exactly.
So we ate some plums. I ate some plums. And then we also put plums in the drink. And it's so good. It's refreshing. Tiffany and I were talking, we've never put plums in a drink before.
Mm-mm.
So it was an experiment with a surprising result. It's delicious. So the pictures for that and the recipe will be on our social medias, Instagram, sometimes Twitter. So if this sounds good to you, go check out our social media because everything's over there. It's very good.
So on next week's episode, we have a kind of a little bit of an announcement and some new exciting things that are going on for us.
Yes. So in the meantime, we want to share a little promo of one of our most favorite podcasts, Malice, hosted by Ariel. It's a true crime podcast, and we think you're going to love it.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ariel Cooksey, host of Malice. When violent acts occur, we tend to think the predators are monsters. Surely no human could do such things. But if we're honest, only humans commit malicious crime. And if you're like me, you want to know why. To find out, join me at Malice, wherever you listen to podcasts. Bye.
So if you enjoyed that promo and you're a little bit curious, go check out Malice. She is available on whatever platform you get your podcasts. And now we are going to do a true crime episode this week, and we are both going to cover or talk about an unsolved murder case.
Yes.
So would you like to go first?
Yes, I will go first.
Okay.
I would love to go first. So my sources are San Francisco CBSLocal.com, sfgate.com, and Wikipedia. And I also looked on the Contra Costa Sheriff official page, Facebook.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I feel like when it comes to unsolved cases, there are two types of people. Mm-hmm. There are people that like unsolved cases, and there are people that don't like unsolved cases because there's more questions than answers. So which one are you?
I like unsolved. I mean, I don't know if like is the right word. I think that it's important for people to learn about unsolved cases because, as I say in this little write-up I did, the squeaky wheel gets the grease kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So I think that it's always important to talk about them. My case doesn't have a ton of information. It's a very, very limited, very short story case.
Yeah.
But I think that the more we talk about this kind of stuff, the more likely it is to be solved.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously not always. We've all heard of JonBenet Ramsey, but in most cases, these cases just need more attention. I feel like. Also, I heard about this. This came to my attention because I was listening to an MFM and somebody. This was their hometown.
Oh, okay.
So they didn't cover it, but they talked about it, and it just because it's like a California case. I wanted to learn about it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Do you like unsolved cases or don't like unsolved? I don't like any kind of murder cases. I wish they didn't happen. But as far as unsolved cases, like you said, I think it's important to talk about them because we know that there's a backlog of cases. We know that violent crimes are happening all the time, and the ones that aren't solved yet are pushed further and further back just because there's so many hours in the day.
Yeah.
And leads dry up, and
these crimes are constantly happening.
Yes. But as far as the like the whodunit aspect and why did this happen and where, I don't, I find unsolved murder cases interesting rather than, although frustrating, but interesting because just to think about what the fuck happened.
Yeah.
Is it's like a puzzle, if not the most important puzzle that we could solve.
It still has all the questions, right?
Yeah. Anyway, sorry to interrupt. I was curious.
Always interrupt me. I love it. You always have a really good point to make, so it's totally worth it.
Oh, you're so nice to me.
I'm like so naturally mean that even when I'm being genuinely nice, I'm like, do I sound sarcastic? Because I honestly meant that. That was a great question though. So the murder I'm covering today is 24 years old. And like we said, it is still unsolved. This horrible crime took place in a town called Crockett. Crockett is a small town in Contra Costa County, California. It's about 28 miles northeast of San Francisco. The population was 3,094 at the 2010 census.
Okay.
So in the 90s, I assume it was even less than that.
Yeah, it sounds like a small town gem in the East Bay.
It's slightly bigger than the very small town that I grew up in. So I kind of understand the vibe of this town.
I mean, I think what's cool about that is you think Bay Area you think Bay Area in California, and you think densely populated, but there are these little gems of like small towns within the Bay Area, and it sounds like Crockett was one of them.
Yeah. I think a lot of people have certain ideas of what California is, and they'd be surprised if they left a very small area of California. So Priscilla Lewis was 21 years old. She was working at the only pizza place in this small town, Four Corners Pizza. She was known and liked by many from all the reports that I found. On the night of September 24th, 1996, Priscilla went to use the bathroom. So the pizza place was part of a very small strip mall called Volona Square Mall. It consisted of only 4 businesses at that time, although there were some vacant storefronts in the strip mall as well.
Okay.
And the bathroom that Priscilla went to was in the basement of this strip mall. It was isolated, but also easily accessible to anyone in the mall itself.
Oh.
So it was like open to everybody.
That's like a disaster waiting to happen.
The building has 3 entrances and 3 stairwells, which all lead to the basement level. So this basement level is isolated, easily accessible, and usually there's nobody in there, typically, right? Unless somebody is just putting something down in the basement or using this restroom.
Yeah, and it sounds like that you didn't have to have a key card or a key to get to the access.
And nothing that I found said anything about having to have
like a key card or
yeah, I didn't find that anywhere.
Fucking sketchy, man.
Yes.
I am like getting fucking
on the Facebook post
uptight about that, just thinking of that's where you had to go to use the restroom.
Well, on the Facebook post, somebody who lives in this town actually said that they remembered that bathroom, and everybody knew that it was a creepy bathroom you didn't want to use.
Yeah.
There was like a bar restaurant across the street, and a lot of times I guess locals would just use that. When Priscilla didn't return from the bathroom, the restaurant cook went to look for her. He found her body and called 911 at 10:30 p.m. Priscilla was battered, strangled, her neck was broken, and her face was in the toilet.
What the fuck, man?
Police interviewed dozens of people, took evidence, but no one was ever arrested in the murder of Priscilla Lewis. In the wake of Priscilla's murder, the town was obviously traumatized.
Yeah.
And people came together to honor her as well as hopefully find her killer.
Yeah.
At the school she graduated from, teachers, coworkers, and community members planted a willow tree shortly after her murder. a $60,000 reward fund was created by 2 local refineries as well as donations from the community in the hopes that a reward would lead to the capture of Priscilla's killer, which $60,000 in the 90s in a very small town is so much money. It's just a testament to how much this community really wanted to have this case solved. And you have to think, it was either a very, very random vagrant passing through this town or everybody's neighbor.
Right.
Those are the options.
Right.
It's so terrifying.
This is kind of one of the beautiful things about a small town. It could be a double-edged sword, small town mentality, but one of the beautiful things about a small town is everyone is family, you know, and this entire town felt like it was their sister, their daughter, their niece, their cousin, you know, that was brutally murdered in this notoriously creepy bathroom that needed to be either shut down or locked.
Yeah. Or have a
security guard or something.
Even know. It's just a shit situation.
I have a question. You probably said this and I didn't listen or didn't hear you. Do you know how long she was gone?
She wasn't gone that long. It was basically like she was on a break and then didn't come back. So the cook went to find her. I think it was closing time.
Okay.
It was 10:30. So I'm assuming he was like, it's closing time. What's Priscilla doing?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Okay.
It was also the 90s. So it's not like she was when we used to take breaks at work and like get distracted on your phone or something.
Yeah.
So he was also probably immediately kind of like, what's happening here?
Yeah. Yeah.
How traumatizing for him to find his friend.
I know. Oh my God. That's so fucked up, man.
So last year, the town of Crockett came together for a candlelight vigil to remember their friend, their neighbor, and bring some much needed attention to this very cold case. The local news station went to the vigil, and the pain that her friends and family still feel to this day was palpable. People were very emotional.
I can imagine.
One hope is that with advances in DNA testing, her killer might be brought to justice.
Was there DNA? Do you know? Did the article say if there was DNA they recovered any?
They didn't specifically say DNA. They just said several pieces of evidence.
Okay.
But her friend said, quote, "She was a great, kind person, but she was a fighter. There has to be DNA. There's absolutely no way she didn't fight for her life." And this was a quote from her friend, Jennifer Sylvester. Also, it did mention in one of the articles that she did put up a struggle.
Okay. So yeah.
So I am hopeful that there was DNA.
Yeah. Some
under nails,
fingernails, something
exactly.
Like that. Okay. Hopefully.
Yeah. I mean, it's an unfortunate truth that sometimes people get away with the worst types of crimes. Sometimes justice isn't served, but hopefully if these lesser known cases keep getting talked about, like what we said, if they keep getting attention, eventually, hopefully this case and other cases like it will get solved.
Yeah.
The squeaky wheel gets the oil, and I hope that in some small way our podcast helps bring attention to these lesser known cases.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Especially in this case, if Priscilla did fight her attacker and there's been so many advances in DNA, I'm really hoping that they can pull DNA from her and solve this case.
Yeah.
I know there's not a ton of information. I just really wanted to talk about it. If you have any information on the murder of Priscilla Lewis, please contact the Office of the Sheriff Homicide Unit at 925-313-2630. We'll post on our social media. The Sheriff Homicide Unit, I believe it's out of Contra Costa County still. They also have an email, and they also have an anonymous voicemail tip line that you can call. So if you know something and you are afraid to say something because you don't want people to know that it was you, I understand this is a small town. And if it is somebody in their community, that could be terrifying. But you could leave an anonymous tip. And I guess that wraps up my case. But I really hope that, like I said, us talking about it will help bring some attention to it.
Yeah. I feel like it's important to talk about cold cases, because as time goes by, here's an example. Say you are in a relationship with somebody and they acted very sketchy on the day they came home late. They were acting different. Their personality was different for a day on the day that something like this happened. And at the time, maybe you didn't want to say anything because you were in love with them, or you thought maybe that, oh, it couldn't be this person, that
Or
I
you
love.
didn't even put two and two together.
Yeah. And then 20 years later, you're not with this person anymore. And you're thinking, oh my gosh, that was a day so-and-so came home late and they had blood on them, or they were acting very strange, or they were acting bizarre at the service. And I didn't notice it. And I just remembered, like, that's.
Or maybe even if it was somebody from out of town, maybe you saw an unusual car that you never thought about.
Or even the killer themselves got loose lips 10 years later.
Which happens all the time. Shitbags talking too fucking much has solved so many crimes. Maybe you ran into some fucking dirtbag at a bar and he said something that made you think twice about it.
Yeah. Wow. What a fucking scary case. I hope they shut that goddamn bathroom down. It's just frustrating because I feel like women all the time are put in those positions. Vulnerable people in general are put in those positions. People in general, maybe don't even consider themselves vulnerable, are put in positions like that. Something as simple as having to use the restroom can be dangerous.
It is frustrating.
It's very frustrating. Well, thank you for sharing that. And I hope someday Priscilla gets the justice that she deserves.
Me too.
All right. So my case this week that I'm talking about is also an unsolved murder. And this is really close to home. Like, really close to home. I'm going to go over my sources first. I used a bunch of articles from the local Yuba Sutter newspaper, the Appeal Democrat. And I also used Google Maps for kind of like a visual.
Okay.
So there's that. I'm covering the unsolved murder of Chairo Yosuke Garibay. Now, that, like I said, this is close to home. This happened in my hometown. I grew up in Olivos, California. It's in Northern California in the Yuba Sutter area. And unfortunately, this is one of those cases that leaves us with more questions than answers. So Chairo was born in Natswalacatl, Mexico, and she immigrated to the United States as a young girl with her family. They settled in Olivos, California. Loved by everybody that knew her, Chairo had a kind, inherent joy. As a child, she sang in her church choir. Chairo adored her little brother and sister, and she loved wearing high heels. By the time she was 20, she had worked at Express Video on Olivos Avenue for 3 years. And Chairo would bring home movies, which she would regularly translate for her mother in their entirety.
That is so sweet.
And I included that because I think it kind of shows what a kind, loving person that she was.
It's a little snapshot of her soul.
Yes. Now, here's the thing. I vaguely remember renting movies from Express Video. Because Olivos, California is also a small town.
Yeah.
And everybody went to Express Video. I remember for a sleepover, my mom rented the entire Jaws series from Express Video. However, Chairo didn't work there when I went. We are about the same age. We are pretty much the same age. She was a year or two older than me, and this was maybe like, I say middle school, so she obviously didn't work there at the time. But I did talk to a really good family friend. Yesterday we had a conversation about Chairo because she also went to Express Video. My friend Veronica, she went to Express Video, and she said that, these are her words, back in the day, Express was popping. Friday night, Saturday night, everyone was in there renting movies. It was like a small town video store in the early 2000s and late 90s, you know?
Totally. When we were young, going to rent movies when your friends were over, or when you're spending the night with a friend, going to rent movies was like,
it was the best.
It was so fun.
Yeah. And I just wanted to mention this because Veronica didn't personally know Chairo, but it was a testament to how infectious her personality was. Veronica remembers Chairo just from going in to rent movies. She just remembers how kind and friendly and warm she was. She was just the kind of person that you gravitated towards.
It sounds like it.
You know, she just had a light. By the end of 2005, Chairo was ready to spread her wings. Quote, she had big goals and plans. She had been accepted to Sacramento State University and was planning on starting in the spring of 2006. In the days leading up to her disappearance, Chairo and her family were packing for a family trip to Mexico over Christmas. It would be the first time returning to Mexico City since moving to the U.S. They were all very excited to go, especially Chairo, because it would be the first time she would be meeting her biological dad. Saturday, December 10th, 2005, Chairo worked at Express Video, her normal shift, and she even brought movies home that night. The family all planned to go to St. Joseph's in Marysville for an early morning mass the next day. On Sunday, they have, now I looked at St. Joseph's website. It's a pretty iconic church in Marysville. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful Catholic church. I went on their website, and ours might be a little bit different because of the pandemic, but it said they have an 8 a.m. mass and a 10 a.m. mass on Sundays.
That's the church that's like the highest point when you're looking over Marysville,
yes,
right?
Yes.
The church steeple
yes.
stands above everything else.
Yes,
yeah.
it's beautiful. Now, this was close to Christmas, so I'm wondering if they maybe had an early mass on Sunday. And the only reason I mentioned the time of the mass because her family does leave pretty early on Sunday morning. So maybe they're going to breakfast before, or maybe there was like a special holiday mass earlier that day. So let's get into the details of what we do know. So on Sunday, December 11th, 2005, Chairo's family leaves the house for church around 5 a.m. Chairo stays behind to get ready, and she told her family she was planning to meet them at the mass. That's the last time they see her. She never made it to church. Not worried at first, her family assumed that she fell back asleep and just missed mass. They get back home around 10 a.m. and Chairo isn't there. And also, a family car is missing. But her purse, her ID, and her cell phone were still in the house. At this point, her parents are starting to get a little suspicious, but there wasn't anything out of place or any sign of a struggle. It was just very weird.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, around 9:30 that morning, a nature photographer was walking along the Bear River and came across a submerged car. This is about half a mile off of Highway 70, which runs directly parallel to Olivehurst, heading north and continues straight into Marysville. The photographer called Highway Patrol. Highway Patrol shows up and they run the plates on the 1995 green Toyota Camry and find the car is registered to the Garibay family. It's the missing car. Highway Patrol then contacts Yuba County Sheriff's Department, and the sheriff office goes to the Garibay household about the car in the submerged in the river.
Yeah.
And it's at that point her parents know something terrible has happened to Chairo. They immediately start searching. They search the riverbed where the car was found. They search her neighborhood. And this is so wild to me because I am familiar with this neighborhood. I had a friend who lived there. I dated a boy in high school that lived in this neighborhood. It backs up to my neighborhood that I grew up in. And I know now that the area is developed. It's more developed with housing developments. But in 2005, it was mostly orchards and like grass fields. So they searched the orchards, they searched the grass fields, they even searched the Feather River, which is close, but not super close. The search turns up nothing. The FBI got involved. There was dozens of volunteers from the community, the multiple local police community, multiple local police organizations, the Highway Patrol, the Yuba County Sheriffs, all were searching. So they searched for about 10 days and they didn't come up with anything.
Oh my God.
In the meantime, one of the family members found a back window screen on the ground in the back of the house and possibly an open window. Now, I don't know if it was open or not. The newspaper article didn't say either way. also, according to the Appeal Democrat, it was never confirmed if the window had anything to do with Chairo's disappearance.
Because nobody knows.
Nobody knew. So they did find a partial print.
Yeah.
But it never led to anything.
But it didn't match anybody in the house.
It didn't, yeah. So, like I said, for 10 days, search parties and police organizations looked for Chairo with no results. Then, on January 16th, 2006, by accident, motorists stuck in the mud noticed something strange in a drainage ditch along railroad tracks on Arboga Road in Olivehurst. Sadly, it was the body of Chairo Garibay. She was wrapped in a black tarp, and it appears her killer attempted to weigh her body down with large pieces of cement. Decomposition and recent rain caused her body to rise, making it visible. An autopsy determined cause of death was blunt force trauma by an unknown object. That was blunt force trauma to her head. Some point after this, an investigator from the Department of Justice was brought in to assist in the investigation.
Mm-hmm.
Chairo's murder shocked her family, the community, and police alike. She did not have any enemies. She wasn't mixed up with the wrong crowd. She was just a beautiful young woman starting her life. She was so loved. In fact, her funeral was held at St. Joseph's, the very church her families were members of. And over 200 people were in attendance, many spilling out onto the sidewalk. Actually, my mom went to her funeral service. Chairo had started working at the program Head Start, where my mom worked.
Mm-hmm.
She was an aide there, and they didn't know each other personally. My mom didn't know her personally, but they, passing in the hallway and working in the same program.
And your mom was just touched by the whole situation.
It devastated the community. Devastated. I remember I didn't live there at the time anymore. I had moved away for a little bit. I remember my mom talking about Chairo while she was missing, and then just being devastated that she was found murdered. Devastated.
You're always hoping when somebody's just missing that that's not what's the situation is.
Yeah. It rocked Olivehurst, the small town of Olivehurst. It was very sad. It is very sad.
All of the communities in this area are very small.
Mm-hmm. They are. They're a bunch of small towns.
Yeah.
Yuba Sutter is made up of a few small towns.
Yeah.
In 2006, Governor Schwarzenegger, or as we like to call him, the Governator, offered a $25,000 reward for the arrest and conviction of her killer, hoping that would drum up some leads.
Wow.
Along with billboards, newspaper articles, nothing brought any new leads.
We're not that far from Sacramento, so I guess he probably just saw it in the local news.
Yeah. I thought that was another reason the Governator is
pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So here's some of the facts, because there's not very many. So here's some of the facts that I got from the newspaper. Mm-hmm. Detectives determined that she was, quote, confronted at about 5:25 a.m. I don't know how they determined that, how they knew that, what evidence led them to believe that. And I don't know what they meant by, quote, confronted. I don't know if she was confronted in her home. There was no signs of struggle.
They just assumed that is the point where she was met with her abductor.
Yes.
Basically.
Yes. And the autopsy also determined that she was most likely killed right at the confrontation or soon after. Mm-hmm. So her body was found less than a mile from her house.
So there was no evidence found inside the residence.
None that the police are releasing.
This is just...
It's very strange. It's bizarre.
It's like somebody either had to be sitting there waiting for her family to leave, or she stepped outside for something to grab something from her car or what have you, and then somebody saw her.
Yeah. So I talked to Veronica in a little bit at length. She didn't know Chairo personally, like I said, but she said, you know, she was just one of those people that drew others near her. You just wanted to be around her. She said, just as a rental customer, I remembered her.
Yeah.
And, you know, she said there could have been, and this is her own theory. She's not in law enforcement. She's not a detective. I'm not either. But she said, you know, maybe somebody just grew an infatuation with her from renting movies. She ran into pretty much the whole town there.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So here are some questions and some points that I would love for us to discuss a little bit. So obviously her killer tried to cover their tracks.
Yeah.
I don't know why. Maybe I don't know if because they knew her personally, and maybe there was no sign of a struggle because she knew the person.
Yeah.
Or maybe she was forced out of her house at gunpoint, or maybe she was already out of her house on her way to church, you know, getting into the car, and it was I don't know.
It just seems like it would be a very slim stroke of
Luck.
chance for the perpetrator to see her coming out of her house at that early hour.
It would be a very, like
what are the odds of that?
of opportunity.
Yeah.
Just in those 30 seconds at 5:30 in the morning,
Yeah.
catching her from her door to her car.
Yes.
It would be,
Which
slim.
seems to me to increase the likelihood that the person knew her, or at least knew her routine.
Yeah. So another thing was, why take the car? Did they come on foot?
They must have, yeah.
So, but then I thought, okay.
But that's not, I mean, if the theory is that it's somebody that knew her, Oliver's is big enough, you could walk to wherever you were getting, I guess.
Yes,
right?
you could walk. But I was thinking about this. Okay, say the person was on foot and it was maybe either a crime of opportunity or somebody that premeditated it, that knew her. The body was found within a mile of her house. However, the car was found probably 25 minutes away. Where did they go after they submerged the car in the Bear River? And why submerge the car?
Maybe to destroy evidence.
So, I mean,
they had, hair, fingerprints, whatever. Maybe that's why they submerged the car, to make sure that they didn't leave any evidence in the car.
And also because I know the area, the Feather River is bigger and it's closer. So I'm wondering why they went to the Bear River 20 minutes down the highway, which would also mean
maybe they were heading, maybe they weren't from here. Maybe they were heading back to wherever they came from.
But once they submerged the car, where did they walk? The Bear River is out in the middle of nowhere.
Maybe
not.
They walked or hitchhiked or something.
Yeah. So that was a couple questions I had.
It is definitely leaves you with more questions than answers.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense.
Which makes it kind of, now I'm like doubling back, but now that kind of makes it does seem like it was just
opportunity.
Yeah. Because it doesn't seem like there was a plan.
Or
did they do that? Wait, what town was the car found in?
It was not found in a town. It was where Plumas Lake is now.
Okay, so it was the same jurisdiction.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was where
Never mind. I thought maybe they were trying to get the car into a different police jurisdiction.
It was almost Rio Oso. Almost. But it's now where Plumas Lake is.
Okay.
It just seems like a very random place.
Maybe this was just a horrible person that just saw her alone and acted.
Right. And then I thought, okay, so they came on foot and then dumped the car. It just doesn't seem, I don't know. I'm just like spitballing here. It doesn't seem plausible to dump a car out in the middle of nowhere and then have no means of transportation to get back to wherever you came from. Then I thought, was it more than one person?
Yeah, I was going to say that too. They might have had somebody else following them. But why would these people attack? Why would more than one person attack her?
And that doesn't make sense. She was loved. She was just a woman living her life.
Yeah.
She had no enemies, none whatsoever.
I have listened to another unsolved case about a young girl dumped in a drainage ditch, wrapped in a tarp as well. And it's very disturbing that this is, I guess, something that people just know or think to do.
And the newspaper said that Chairo's body was put pretty, like, they were trying to hide it. It was put at the very bottom of this canal ditch.
So somebody that would know the area.
And also yes, someone who knew the area, and also knew the area of the Bear River, because it's not a particularly large river. So you would have to know where it was deep enough to submerge a car, and also how to get to it, because you had to take a certain exit off 70 to get to this spot. And I don't know if it's a popular spot. I didn't see it. I didn't drive by it. I don't know exactly. I guesstimated where it was on a map based on the directions from the newspaper where they said they found it. So, but it's not just like a large river where you could just drive a car off a bank and it would like sink.
Yeah.
It was like a pretty, I would say, relatively narrow, shallow river from what I know of it. Maybe I'm totally fucking wrong.
Probably not wrong. I'm just thinking this is just...
It's very strange.
It's very strange. It's like, why would any of this happen?
That's like, why the behavior? Why the hiding? Why the behavior? Was it someone she knew? That's what makes me think it was someone she knew, because they were trying to buy time.
Did it say anything about anything in her personal life?
No, nothing. I could find nothing. There were things in the community that were said. I'm not going to repeat them because I don't know if they're fact.
That's that's probably
so there was like rumblings within the community of like theories. But I did read somewhere that she did have a boyfriend at the time. But he's since moved away. And I think it didn't say whether he was cleared as a suspect or not. It didn't say he was a person of interest.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Did it say anything about any possible DNA off of her body? Do they think that there wasn't any because of how she was?
The article did say, one of the articles, I read multiple, said that because it was in December and into January, that the tarp in combination with the cold water preserved her body. So if there was DNA, I do believe that it was preserved.
Unless it was washed away.
But one of the articles said her body was well preserved. So that would be...
The hope is that there's DNA.
Yes, absolutely. So, and there's literally, that's all.
Even just DNA off the tarp. If part of the tarp was out of the water, it would have his DNA on it, right?
Yes.
Doesn't necessarily have to be on her.
So, and it didn't say was a tarp premeditated? Was it in her car already? Was it found in the ditch? Was it?
Yeah, where did the tarp come from?
It didn't say. It didn't say.
Like, what if the tarp came from him? Then even if part of it was underwater, chances are there's some sort of DNA on it.
Yeah, and it didn't say if the cement was in the ditch already or if her killer brought the cement. I don't know. It's all very bizarre and very sad. It's very, very sad. We did the case on the Yuba County 5, and
it's so heartbreaking.
Yeah, the Sacramento Bee did, in my opinion, a great 2-part article on that case, and I'm hoping this year would be the 20th anniversary of her murder, and I'm hoping that the local newspaper will do a piece, maybe see if the sheriff's office will release any more information to kind of breathe new life into the case. Because we all watch the same shows. We all listen to the same podcasts. If you're into true crime, that detectives hold some information private. Yeah. So I'm thinking that they have a lot of information that they haven't released. So, maybe it's been 20 years. Maybe there'll come a point where they can release some to the public and it will spark some leads, spark some calls, spark some interest in the case again, because I guarantee you her family and the community think about her every day.
Oh, I guarantee it.
So it was just
these cases. That's why it's so important to talk about these cases, even if it's just on a little pod like ours. Yeah. Just so that they don't get forgotten.
I agree. I just wanted to end on a quote from Chairo's best friend. She gave a quote on at one of the memorial services. Now they've had annual memorial services. Yuba County Victim Witness is, in my opinion, I used to work in the school district in Yuba County, and you're a mandated reporter, so you sometimes work with Victim Witness, and they are a county government agency, and they have social workers, therapists, and advocates for victims and victims' families of crimes. And in my opinion, I am so thankful that not only Chairo's family, but other families that have experienced traumatic murders in their family and traumatic violence in their family, they have victim witness to their advocates. They go to the house, they talk to the family, they sit with the family, they offer counseling and PTSD services for the family. If there is a case where it goes to trial, they go with the family members to trial. They're basically like an emotional support system for families of victims.
It's so incredible.
It is so incredible. It's so incredible. I know somebody personally who has dealt with victim witness, and they are invaluable to this community. And I just wanted to give them a shout out because they are wonderful. So I wanted to end this episode with, like I said, a quote from her best friend that was taken from the Appeal Democrat at a memorial service. Quote, Chairo's smile brought smiles to others. Her laugh and giggling drew people to her, and her warm personality put others at ease. She was a beautiful person. She brought light to everyone's life, and she continues to brighten up people's lives. Being around her brightened your day. She gave off a good vibe. She was always positive, even when she was mad or sad. That's like so breaks my heart. Like, I'm so sorry to get emotional, but it's just like, she was such a beautiful person.
It's really awful.
And she just like loved her family. You could tell, like, just from old news articles, she was just such a loving person. And it's just like so sad. So if you have any information or know someone who might have information on Chairo Garibay's murder, please contact the Yuba County Sheriff's Department at 530-749-7777. And I don't know if you can give an anonymous tip, but I'm sure there's an option for that. I'll post her unsolved murder case file on the Yuba County website. I'll post that on our social medias, and I'll give you also email and maybe exactly who to contact, who to ask for.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those are two unsolved murder cases. Pretty fucking sad, man.
Way sad.
Yeah. I mean, stop killing women. Stop killing women and people. Just stop killing people in general. Although this researching this was heavy, I was emotional for sure. Probably because I am more connected because I grew up in this town. I know these people, people I know knew her. But I actually really like doing these cases because, like you said, it's important to talk about them.
It is. Doing the true crime cases are really, really hard. Mm-hmm. But in situations like this where they're unsolved, I think that it's more than worth it for me to be a little bit uncomfortable and to be sad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
To hopefully shed some light and some attention on these cases.
Yeah, I agree.
Because my hope is that, they'll all get solved.
Yeah, like what if this, we're based in Yuba Sutter, so it's like, what if someone from Yuba Sutter happens to hear this and is like, what the fuck? I remember this, and
Yeah.
So I don't know. Rest in peace, Priscilla and Chairo, and rest in love. And my condolences to both families. And it's just, to lose a family member is just beyond devastating.
So horrible.
Yeah. All right. Well, that wraps up this episode. And thank you so much for listening.
We truly, truly appreciate every listener that we have.
Seriously, we do. And you know what? If you have an unsolved murder from your town, email us, happyhourgetsweird@gmail.com.
Or find us on our socials.
Find us on our socials. Yeah. DM us, comment on our post, and we'll look into it. You want us to cover it? We'll happily do that. I think the more we talk about cold cases and unsolved murders, the more chances that they're likely to be solved.
Exactly. And we know there's a lot of cases like this out there in small towns that people don't even know about.
Yeah. Yes. That we can't even find on the internet.
Yeah.
Without knowing a name or a time or a place. So
exactly.
Yeah. If you have one, send it to us. And
thank you for listening.
Thank you so much for listening. And on that note, love yourself.
Lock your doors.
And light some sage. Cheers to that.